It started as just another royal rumor, quiet, uncertain, and easy to dismiss. But this one didn't fade. It grew louder, sharper, and more unsettling. Because this time, it's not just palace gossip or another disgruntled ex-employee. This time, there's allegedly a camera involved. Behind Meghan Markle's carefully crafted image, graceful speeches, tearful interviews, and talk of compassion, there's a darker story starting to surface. And for the first time, it might not be hearsay. It might be on tape.
The way she treated me, she says of Meghan, can only be described as dehumanizing.
A woman who once symbolized modern royalty, breaking barriers and challenging centuries of tradition, is now being accused of something far more human. Mistreating the very people who kept her world running. And those accusations? They're not coming from tabloids. They're coming from people who were in the room. But this isn't just about one bad day or one harsh word. According to insiders, it was a pattern. And if the footage they claim exists ever leaks, it won't just damage a reputation, it could completely shatter the image Meghan Markle built from the ground up.
If Harry catches Meghan being nasty, he does step in and defend the staff, which I thought was incredibly interesting.
It wasn't a one-time outburst. According to those closest to the situation, what happened behind closed doors followed a script of its own, one filled with control, emotional manipulation, and silence. And it didn't take long after the royal wedding for things to shift. One former staffer says she's still recovering from the emotional toll, even years after leaving Meghan's team. The way she puts it? Dehumanizing. Not harsh. Not difficult. Dehumanizing. And she's not alone. There's even a name quietly shared among ex-staffers who claim to have experienced the same treatment. They call themselves the Sussex Survivors Club. Not as a joke. Not as a punchline. As a coping mechanism. They say Meghan's demeanor changed dramatically depending on who was in the room. When Prince Harry was present, the charm returned. But the moment he left, the mask slipped. Behind the glamour and grace was someone described as cold, calculated, and painfully critical. And survivor. That's a word you don't throw around lightly. It's not used for a tough boss or a demanding schedule. It's used when something leaves a mark. To the world, Meghan Markle was all smiles, graceful hugs, warm speeches, and the perfect mix of elegance and empathy. But the people who worked for her tell a very different story. They say there were two Meghans, the one you saw on stage, and the one who came out when the cameras stopped rolling. Orders were barked, not requested. Eye rolls replaced encouragement. And personal jabs? Wrapped in the language of professional feedback. One aide reportedly cried after more than one shift. Another called the environment emotionally exhausting. Their words weren't bitter, they were worn down. Behind palace walls, there was no Hollywood glow. There was pressure, silence, and control. Former staff described being told how to stand, how to speak, even how to breathe around her. It wasn't leadership. It was dominance. And it didn't stop at emotions. The exits came fast. Resignations, terminations, quiet departures covered by polished statements and NDA shields. One by one, people vanished from Meghan's inner circle, not with a bang, but with a breakdown. When Meghan and Harry stepped away from royal life, they framed it as a fresh start. No more palace politics, no more media pressure, just freedom. Deals with Netflix, a Spotify podcast, a lifestyle brand. On paper, it looked like a flawless Hollywood escape plan. But behind the press releases and red carpet moments, the cracks began to show. Staffers hired after the royal exit reported the same issues. Emotional manipulation, cutting remarks, a work culture so intense, some called it unbearable. One assistant allegedly made a minor scheduling mistake, and Meghan's response? She dressed her down in front of the entire team. The woman left the meeting in tears. This wasn't the palace anymore. There were no royal rules, no press handlers. Just Meghan's empire run her way, and even then, the stories didn't stop. And the empire? It started to falter. The Spotify deal ended abruptly, with a public jab about underperformance. Netflix reportedly canceled multiple projects. Her lifestyle brand launched with a whisper and fizzled without a flame. The fairy tale of independence was losing its magic. And suddenly, people began to ask, what if the problem wasn't the system she left, but the person trying to replace it? Through all the whispers, the stories, and now the growing speculation about actual footage, Meghan's camp has said nothing. No denials. No lawsuits. No statements at all. Just silence. But in the world of scandal, silence isn't neutral. It becomes its own kind of answer. Especially when the people speaking out aren't strangers. They're the ones who were in the room. One insider claims Meghan once mocked a staffer's British accent during a team meeting. Everyone laughed nervously, except the staffer. She just sat there stunned. That moment didn't go viral. It didn't need to, because it stayed with her, like a bruise that never fully faded. And that's the dangerous part. Not the headlines, not the clickbait, but the quiet, uncomfortable moments that pile up behind closed doors. The things that don't trend online, but break people down slowly, piece by piece. When you build a brand around compassion and stay silent as your former team breaks down behind the scenes, what are you really saying? Because at a certain point, silence starts to sound a lot like consent. For a while, Meghan Markle was untouchable. A biracial American woman stepping into a centuries-old monarchy. She wasn't just a duchess, she was a symbol. People projected their hopes onto her. Equality, change, a break from the past. She was the future. But what happens when the person meant to represent progress starts to look like the very thing she claimed to fight against? It's not just one former staffer speaking out, it's a chorus. Different voices, different years, but the same haunting patterns. Crying in bathrooms, dreading meetings, feeling small under someone who publicly preached empowerment. And maybe that's what stings the most, not just the treatment, but the betrayal. These weren't people looking for attention. Many of them admired Meghan. They believed in her mission. They thought they were building something meaningful. Instead, they walked away hurt, silenced, and in some cases, broken. Because when someone you look up to becomes the reason you can't sleep at night, it cuts deeper. This isn't just a PR problem. It's a character crisis. And with every new voice that steps forward, Meghan's polished image doesn't just crack, it collapses. Meghan Markle built a public image rooted in kindness, championing mental health, women's rights, and being a voice for the voiceless. But now, those voiceless are speaking. And they're not tabloids. They're not anonymous internet trolls. They're the people who worked beside her day after day and walked away emotionally wrecked. If even a fraction of these stories are true, this isn't just about one woman's behavior. It's about the harm that hides beneath the surface of power and celebrity. Behind the speeches and smiles was something colder, an obsession with control. One former staffer said it best, you couldn't just work. You had to worship. Another said Meghan didn't talk to them like people. They were just in the way. And while her empire crumbles, Spotify gone, Netflix projects stalling, her lifestyle brand barely breathing, the real question isn't about failing business deals. It's about the people left behind in those meetings, in those hallways, holding back tears while the world praised their boss as a symbol of strength. Because when the performance fades, when the script ends, and the curated image peels away, what's left? Who did Meghan Markle actually help? Her staff? Shaken. Her partnerships? Fractured. Her image? Fragile. And the most disturbing part? No one from her side is saying a word. That's silence. It's not just loud, it's crushing. There's something deeply unsettling about watching someone who claimed to stand for empathy leave behind a trail of people who say they were treated like they didn't matter. The staff who've spoken out didn't do so for fame. Most stayed silent for years. Some still can't speak freely because of contracts. But slowly, piece by piece, the truth has started to surface, not through headlines, but through quiet testimonies, and maybe even a leaked video that could change everything. Meghan once held the mic as the voice of the unheard. But when it came time to speak up for those who suffered under her leadership, she said nothing. That silence? It speaks volumes. Because power doesn't just corrupt, it conceals. And when kindness is just a brand, when compassion is only a tagline, the people behind the scenes become disposable. Voiceless. Replaceable. But not anymore. They're speaking. The world is listening. And Meghan? She's still silent. So now, we're left with one question. When the cameras are gone, the doors are closed, and the curated image fades, who is she really? Do you believe the staff stories, or is this just another media spin? Drop your thoughts in the comments, especially if you've changed your opinion about Meghan over time.